Hi everybody and welcome to Jewell Family Farms. I just wanted to come on and talk today about not so much about what's happening in the world right now as far as the virus concerned, but more about how to be sustainable when things like this happen. One of the things that people I think might not know how to do as well anymore is how to cook from scratch, and it really isn't that difficult. You can buy things in bulk, but not in bulk. You can buy things that you can put in the freezer, like flour, cornmeal, things that will last a long time. Bags of rice, bags of dried beans, things like that that can be stored without having a freezer. I know that people are limited on their freezer space, but there are a lot of things that you can buy and make that you don't need to put into the freezer. Canned meats, canned tuna, fish, salmon, things like that you can that have a long shelf life. One of the recipe books that I use and I've had since the 70s is the Betty Crocker cookbook. I've had that since I first got married, and it was my very first cookbook, and I don't know if it's still in print or not, but I'm sure that there are other varieties of the Betty Crocker cookbook, and that's a cook from scratch cookbook. It has a lot of great recipes in it, very frugal recipes for if you're strapped for money and don't have a lot of grocery money to use. This is what I used when me and my husband first got married, and as soon as I started having kids and a family, and money wasn't that great. He was working by him, we were one income. I wasn't working. I was at home with the kids, and I had to come up with things that was fairly nutritious, but also that we could afford. So, and the Betty Crocker cookbook was one of the things that I used. But I also knew how to do a lot of things already. My mom taught me how to cook, and my grandma, and they all cooked from scratch. There wasn't microwaves back then. We didn't have microwaves. My grandma had a wood cook stove. That's what she cooked on. Mom, she had I think it was electric stove. Might have been gas. I'm not sure what she started out on. But, we didn't have a lot of freezer space. Mostly just had the freezer, in the top of the refrigerator. But we also canned a lot of our food. And we canned meats. I know my grandma, she, if they killed a hog or whatever, or beef or whatever, they would can all that. They didn't have no place to freeze it. And she would, pressure can it. And they did the sausage the same way. They would make sausage and make it into patties and put it down in those jars and can that sausage and put a little layer of fat on the top to help preserve it. They would can that sausage like that. So, there's ways to preserve other things too that you have in your garden. You can, like potatoes. Potatoes are a very easy thing to keep as long as you keep them in a cool, dry place, and don't have them so compacted together, but have them like on a and lay it out on some newspaper or something like that. You can store them up underneath of your bed if that's the only place that you have to store them, and lay them out on newspapers, like put a piece of plastic down and then newspapers on that, and lay your potatoes out, your sweet potatoes, things like that. You have to keep a close eye on them because, potatoes do rot, and so, but there's all kinds of ways of preserving your crops. If you grow corn is a little bit harder to grow than most people think. There's science to growing corn, and you have to have so many rows. It's very complicated, but like cucumbers. Cucumbers is an easy crop to grow, And you don't have to know how to pickle. If you know to can, you can make refrigerator pickles that'll last for several weeks in your refrigerator in big batches. I mean, I use great big those great big you know pickle jars that you can get at the store that has those great big fat pickles in them, those great big jars, and I'll fill that up with cucumbers and onions and spices and vinegar and water and sugar and things like that, and put them in the refrigerator, and they're good to pull out and put on your sandwich, or using potato salad or chicken salad or whatever you use pickles for on sandwiches. So that's something that you can do. There's tons of recipes out on how to make pickles. So, I mean, you can pickle a lot of things. You can pickle okra, you can pickle cucumbers, you can pickle carrots, or there's tons of things that you can pickle, to make pickles out of. Doesn't just have to be cucumbers. But then, if you have your flour, you can buy several bags of flour and keep them in the freezer, because if you don't, you'll get those little bugs in your flour, the little beetles type bugs, and so you have to put your flour in the freezer. Now, once you open it and you're using it, you don't have to keep it out then, but all your extra needs to be put in the freezer, and that includes your cornmeal too, because it'll get little bugs in it too if you don't. And also, people can, even in town and in the cities, you can have, you're allowed to have so many chickens in town. You can have a little chicken tractor. It doesn't take no time to make a little chicken tractor. All it is PVC pipe and chicken wire. And you can move it around your yard, That's all it is. And put a little piece of something on top of it, like a piece of tin. But you'd go to Lowe's and get a piece of tin and put on top of your chicken house. And have you a little, a couple of baskets in there for them to get in and lay eggs. That's a good thing, because, you don't have to have a rooster. A rooster is only if you want to have baby chicks, but if you just want eggs, you don't have to have a rooster. And in town, you're not allowed to have a rooster anyway. But plant something. You can plant in anything, just about. If you have some kind of a container, like let's say a milk jug, cut the top off the milk jug and go up about that high from the bottom and poke a hole in it. Fill it up with dirt and put you some seed down there. You can grow a tomato in that if you wanted to. Mostly you probably want to grow something like lettuce or something, or just get it started in a milk jug and then transplant it into wherever your garden is, or your flower garden or whatever like that. But you can have open up a bag of dirt. You can have a bag of dirt, throw it down someplace in your yard, slit the top of it open, and plant lettuce in it. You don't have to have a container. It can just be a bag of dirt. You can go get dirt. You don't have to buy bags of dirt. You can go, there's a place out there in Massaponax, behind I think it's a Sheets. It's right behind the Sheets, out there at Route 1, and I'm trying to think of the name of that church. It's where the Fast Mart is, and the Sheets, and it's at the crossroads there. But right behind the Sheets, there's a place you can go get a truckload of dirt if you want a truckload, or you could take whatever. Just get some dirt from somewhere and plant. You can plant tomatoes. You can freeze tomatoes. All you have to do is once the tomatoes grow, all you have to do is boil you some hot water, put the tomatoes in there for just a couple of seconds, throw them in some ice water, and the peels will come right off. Throw the tomatoes in a Ziploc baggie, done. Throw it in the freezer. You can add these tomatoes to stews, to soups, to spaghetti sauces. You have, onions the same way. Just grow you some onions. You don't have to put the onion bulb down in the ground. You just make you a little tiny row someplace, about that deep. It's a little tiny row. And just plant your little bulbs, your little onion bulbs down in there. And just kind of push some dirt up around just a little bit, and then you'll grow onions. and you could grow as many onions as you want. Potatoes. Now you have to have a little bit more space for potatoes, because once the potatoes start growing, you have to keep dirt up around. You have to keep pulling dirt up around. So you really need those in a row, and it's called a hill. You take your dirt and you kind of mound it up into a hill, but you make it into a long row of a hill, and then you just go down with the hoe down the top of that mounted dirt, and you put your seed potatoes in there. There's a difference between seed potatoes, though, and potatoes you buy at the grocery store. You'll have to go to southern states and get your seed potatoes. And you have to cut your potatoes and let them dry for a day or two before you put them in the ground, or else they'll rot. So there's a science to it. There's a trick to it. But if you get any kind of a gardening book, like you could go to the store, any bookstore, and look up gardening. You don't have to buy the book. If you can't afford to buy the book, then just go there. Go to the library and get you a gardening book. You can just go there and look up how to plant potatoes. You don't have to buy the book. Just go look it up. And you go to the library, you can get books on gardening for anything. And, it doesn't have to be a great big space. You can plant some little cherry tomatoes in your flower garden. With your flowers. You could grow you a row of lettuce in there. That looks pretty in there with your flowers. So there's all kinds of things that you could do to grow your own food. And maybe you could think about that. Start off with one thing. And see how, if that's something you'd like to do. See how it turns out. And then once you grow something, and you have an actual vegetable that you like a little cherry tomato, and it grows and it turns red, and you pick it off that vine and eat it, and you see how tasty that is compared to what you get at the grocery store, you're going to be hooked. And it's not that much work. I can't say that. It is work, but it's enjoyable work. So go out there, get you some plants from Lowe's. They don't have to be seeds. You get them already established. That helps a lot. And just buy, some little cherry tomatoes and plant those. See how you like that. You can go to southern states and get you a few onions or bulbs. I'm sure they sell them other places. Tractor Supply sells them, I think. And so, yeah. And start off with a few chickens in your backyard. It's not hard to build a chicken tractor. You don't have to have a bottom in it. It's just PVC pipe with chicken wire on it, a couple little baskets in there. And, Google it, or look it up on Pinterest, or go to, I tell you where the best place to go is YouTube. Justin Rhodes. Justin Rhodes is all about chickens. You can find out anything you want to know about chickens from that man. So go there. There's several places on YouTube that you can go look and watch. But, if you don't have YouTube, you don't like to do YouTube, then you can Google it. Google chicken tractors or backyard chickens. That's a good one too. But for cooking from scratch, and for a cookbook that is for very frugal ingredients, it's not a book for fancy food. It tells you how to make mashed potatoes from scratch. It tells you how to make a cake from scratch. It tells you how to make biscuits from scratch. Things like that. Just plain old green beans. If you're not a cook, and you don't really know how to cook, you've only done microwave stuff, or you're a new cook and you're wanting to learn how to cook, that is the best book to go to learn these things for very simple food. So be brave, people. This is not going to last us forever, and hopefully it will come out okay at the end. And I know it's stressful for a lot of people right now, so, take care, and, stay safe, stay well. I know everybody's, at home. Most people are at home except for, people that have to be out, the nurses and the doctors and people like that, and what brave souls they are. And I just want to say thank you to all of those people that do that sort of work. I was a nurse for a while. I'm a retired nurse, I don't know if people know that or not, but I still am licensed as a nurse. I don't do nursing. I haven't done nursing in 20 years. So I work for Medicorp, and but I know that it's very stressful. Nursing in itself is very stressful, and so I know that right now that the stress level for these EMTs and people that are in nursing and doctors and people that are in the medical, you know, environment, the hospitals that have to be there to work, the custodians and anybody that's there, the cooks, whoever's there that has to be there. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for all those people that are so brave to do these things, the policemen. Thank you. So anyway, everybody, take care. Stay well. Count your blessings. And do what the president's asking us to do. Stay in your house. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you later.